going to cost more. And we want to be really careful with not having to go back to work. I mean, it's like our worst day would be the same as everyone else's every day. But the fear is real. So when we retire and we hear things like stock market crash, housing market crash, recession, inflation, those words don't sound like they go really well with retiring early. So we need to invest in such a way to where we don't care about things like a housing crash or stock market crash or a recession. This is going to be one of my couple hour long live streams that I do every Tuesday here at 4 p.m. Pacific. I am doing random daily live streams now that are about 15 minutes long to answer a couple of quick questions because some people like shorter content. And if you put a question in one of my random daily live streams and I don't get to it in time, I am taking note of some of those questions and I will try to get to them in the longer live streams on Tuesdays. So we have this recession coming. We have the stock market crash happening. We have the housing crash in transactions happening. We're literally down like, I don't know, from 6 million last year to 4 million this year. How does that impact you when you retire? Because I had a really good job and I walked away from it July 5th of 2022 and haven't lost any sleep because a recession, a pandemic, a stock market crash won't impact me. I watch another YouTube channel, a gentleman named Joe Kuhn, Kuhn. He's been retired for 4 years, retired, I think, at 54. And he used the stock market buckets method. So I had 3 or 4 buckets. I don't know the method because I don't invest in stocks. And he seems fairly confident that he can handle a bear market going on for several years, losing value in his stocks and not really impact his retirement. So if you're going to retire with stocks, I would definitely research how do you prepare for something like the stock market crashing. If you're going to invest in real estate, the method that I chose to reach financial freedom and make work optional and be able to walk away from a job that I liked, not that the job sucked, it's that time freedom eventually won out. We need to invest in such a way that we're ready for a recession or a housing crash. People who are doing flipping or wholesaling, in my mind, while that is a good strategy, aren't typically investors. It's like a job. It's episodic. They stop doing the work, the money stops coming in. And then you have something like interest rates go up, prices start to flatline, not go up as fast, flipping becomes more risky. So instead of choosing one of those methods, I chose buy and hold rentals, planning on rents to go down up to 50% without having to make me go back to work. Even though, since we started tracking the data, in any 5-year period, rents have never gone down market-wide. So if you invest in a location where there's 1 or 2 economic drivers, like you're in the middle of nowhere next to a base, that base could shut down. If you're next to a port town where there really aren't that many other businesses except for the port could shut down or go on strike. So investing in an area that has several economic drivers, to me, is one of the most important aspects of investing in buy and hold real estate. I want multiple sources of tenants. So the base can shut down, the port can go on strike, Boeing or Amazon can move away, and there's still either a large population or colleges or hospitals or something in the area where I'm still going to have sources of tenants. Not over leveraging. When I was in growth mode for my portfolio, I wanted to be around 70% leveraged, so that I was gaining the most appreciation on multiples of what I invested, but I still had enough equity in the deals to where I could walk away without having to write a check. When I hit retirement, I moved my leveraged position from around 70% total portfolio loan to value down to about 50%. I'm even a little bit under that, so I probably want to actually leverage a little bit more. Making sure that the cash flow is multiples, 3 or 4 times what it takes me to live, so that if rents are impacted, my cash flow can come down significantly. And what is changed is the amount that I set aside to save for future investments, not my lifestyle. I don't have to give up the type of vehicle I drive, the trips I want to take, the food I want to eat. All of that's not impacted, but the amount of money that I save at the end of the month, which I'm going to be making a video on soon, but not today, is how much do you save after you have retired early? It's a question that came up in my short random live stream today. I didn't actually have an answer, so I need to research it to make the video. Being ready for rents to decrease, even though when we're in an area with several economic drivers, it's very unlikely to ever happen. And even a 10 or 15% rent decrease would almost be unnoticeable in my position, to where a 50% rent decrease doesn't actually make it to where I have to pull money out of my own pocket to pay the bills. I also diversify my tenant base. If the base pulls away and closes an area, and you had several economic drivers, but all of your tenants were military, you might be able to find more tenants, but you're going to have to do it all at once. So I try to keep no more than 1/3 of my tenants from the military. I try to keep no more than 1/3 of my tenants from Section 8. That way, the housing authority doesn't impact my ability to have tenants if something changes with the program or they don't keep up with rents. And then I have 1/3 of my tenants that are working or retired. And a recession doesn't impact retired people. It doesn't really impact military, because even if in a military drawdown, it takes years for contracts to end for that to actually change the number of people around a base. So as we're coming into a recession, I wouldn't want to be a flipper or a wholesaler that didn't have any other source of income. I wouldn't want to be invested in anything like a syndication that was projecting rent increases to continue, because they might not continue. Just because we had them for the last couple of years doesn't mean we're going to have them for the next couple of years. Diversifying your locations also matters to me. I wouldn't want all of my rentals in one place, like all on one street or all in one unit, because then you're pulling all of your tenants from one area. So a couple of economic drivers can go away and really impact you. My goal is to have my properties at least 10 miles apart. All of them are, except for 2 that are about 7 miles apart, because the deal was good enough. The 10 miles apart is a wish list. And to me, this really mattered in the beginning before I had several rentals. When I only had a few, it would be more important. But once I had 10 or 15 units, I'm at 16 now, it really doesn't matter if I buy another duplex that's right next to one of my others, because they're spread out enough from the other properties. It's more important to me in the first 5 years or so to be diversified, because you don't really have the resources to handle a big change. Diversified locations, diversified tenant sources, and then diversifying the tenant type. And sometimes when I point out that I diversify my tenant types, people will point out, well, isn't it illegal to discriminate? I mean, if you say military only, you're not getting anybody else. And if you say Section 8 only, you're not taking anyone else. And if you say no Section 8, no military, you're discriminating, which is all true. So never run an ad or never actually actively try to not accept a tenant by saying they don't fit the 1/3 that I'm trying to fill now. Instead, what I do is I control where I advertise. If I want a military tenant and I advertise on base, what kind of applications do you think I'm going to get? If I call the housing authority and I say, hey, I've got a unit coming available on the 1st of November. Here's the link. Can you share this with your clients? Who do you think my applicants are going to be? So I'm controlling how I'm advertising, not how I'm choosing my tenants. Once the listing is advertised, if I want a military person to come in, but a Section 8 tenant applies first and is qualified, I would take them. So it's not a science, it's an art. I'm trying to keep that balance around 1/3. It's never been perfect, but having it close and having my properties spread out means that I was able to walk away from a really good job that paid really well and not worry about having to go back to work, which, yes, the worst case scenario for somebody who retires early is everyone else's day-to-day normal. And we're still trying to avoid that. So my goal with these longer live streams is to answer almost every question that comes in. On my short live stream today, there were some questions that came in that I didn't get to. So I'm going to cover those now before I get to the questions from today, except for I see that Phil did a super chat and said, howdy, cheers, lucky number 47. Thank you. Make sure there's not a Phil question here. How much more fun than Matt are you having now that you are retired? He's having the fun of having young kids. So that's a different type of fun. Time freedom finally won out over having a W-2 job. And I enjoyed when I was working too. I worked to a position where I could take 2 or 3 vacations every year if I wanted to. I don't know. It's a different type of fun. My kids are older. I'm enjoying having adult kids, which some people would think means that they need less attention, but that's not true. So these are questions that came in my live stream today. Chad, thank you for the question. Once you have your first rental and are slowly saving for number 2, what is the best way to spend your time preparing? There is a video on my channel called The 6 Steps to Getting Started in Real Estate. There's one from a little over a year ago, and then there's one from about 3 or 4 months ago. And really those steps are for starting or for between deals. Between deals, we still want to focus on the same steps. We want to learn how to save. So we're increasing our income and decreasing our expenses so we can save the difference. That doesn't stop once we have that first rental. Now that you have that rental, there are things like stabilizing the rental. What repairs would increase rents? Do you use the binder strategy after a couple of months? Are you looking at short-term rental versus long-term rental? Are you shopping for property management? Like all those things that impact the income from that rental and your W-2 and your side hustles that probably still exist in the beginning before you have several rentals lined up. You're still working on your credit score. Even if you get to the point where you have several rentals, you have the 10 mortgages in your name, and you start going for DSCR loans or asset-based lending, your credit score is a factor. So what can you be doing to increase your credit score, which is a follow-up question to Ihu Party, who had a question about paying off a car in the next 6 months to a year because the car being paid off will close out a long account, impacting the credit score, which is one thing to consider. But how much of your, what do they call it? Not debt to income ratio, your credit utilization was being impacted by that car loan. There's a lot of things to consider when it comes to credit scores, and my credit score is only about a 793. So I am not a credit repair channel. I'm not an expert in it. If I had an 830 or 840 and got it there within less than a year, I'd probably teach how to do that. But there are some really good content creators. Stephan, if you go 2 or 3 years back in his content, he had some really good videos on fixing your credit score. So keep focusing on saving, keep focusing on credit. Consistently talk to your lenders at least once a week. To me, what's going on with current interest rates? What new loan products do you have? What owner-occupied lending options do you have? A lot of times they're going to have new first-time homebuyer ones coming out, like Bank of America has, that they're trying to institute now, and now there's others trying to duplicate that. What's changing with the actual loan products? Like in the last year or so, the 40-year mortgages coming out, like companies like Convoy Home Mortgage are kind of game changers. So save, credit, work on what's going on currently with lending, and watch prices. And not just prices of properties, but prices of rentals. You want to know what's currently going on, even if you think it's going to take you another 4 months to a year to save up the down payment for the next place, maybe sooner if you do a house hack. But if it's still going to be that many months, I would still look occasionally to watch what's happening with prices. A mistake, I think, is when people say something like, I'm going to sit back for 6 months or a year and then buy. It takes you 60 to 90 days to get a good feel for what's going on with current prices, and current rents can take several weeks. So it doesn't hurt to keep those skills current. So still look for deals, because sometime you might see something that pops up. I have a couple that Beth Traverso actually sent me recently that she found. Thanks, Beth. That in the listing said seller financing is an option. So now how much you save for the down payment gets changed by what matters to that seller. So you wouldn't see that if you weren't consistently looking. And then watch rents. For several years, I was doing 5% increase every other year. And I was keeping up with rents close enough to where it worked for me. In 2020 and 2021, rents have gone up over 40% in most areas. And if you weren't watching rents, you could start seeing deals that looked like they would lose money. I did a video on my friend. I paid $298,000 for a duplex. She was about 6 properties away. She paid $555,000 for a duplex. And her deal was better than mine because rates changed and rents changed. So Chad, I would stay on top of that. And then Terrence asks, should I focus on paying off debt or investing? And for me, there's an order of operations for this. Should you focus on paying off debt or investing? And to me, paying off debt and house hacking had the same value to me. So I would pursue both at the same time. What I actually did was I took any debt that was over 6% interest or had an adjustable rate. If you have any credit cards that the rate can adjust on, focus on paying those off. So in the beginning, the first couple of years, 50% of my, disposable income, the money that wasn't being used to live on, 50% went into an account to pay off high interest rate debt and the minimums on the rest of the debt. And 50% went into the savings account to build for that first house hack. After the debts above 6% are taken care of, it's not a priority for me to pay off that debt. An example is the mortgages that I have that are all under one's under 5%, the rest are all under 4% even on all the rentals. I don't ever plan on paying that off. The tenants will pay it off over decades, and eventually I will have paid off properties producing a lot of rent that have expired or exhausted their depreciation schedule, and I'll have to pay taxes. That will suck. It'll be the first time I have to pay taxes in real estate. So above 6% interest, I would either focus on paying it off or getting into a house hack. Below 6%, I would wait until the income snowball kicks in. Once you have a few rentals, so then you would invest getting a few rentals and you get that cash flow. What I did is about year 4.5, when I started getting cash flow from my house rented out, I was house hacking and I had a duplex that was also cash flowing. I then focused on the low interest, bad debt. It's the good debt that I don't really plan on paying off. Because remember, there's a couple things that makes debt good. One, it makes more money than it costs you. And two, someone else pays it off. So I wouldn't focus on paying off debt that someone else is going to pay off. And then Buff asks, got any tips on getting a subpar performing tenant to perform? Bought my first duplex about a year ago, inherited tenants. So one of the reasons why I use the binder strategy is because it really develops a good relationship with existing tenants. It does a few things. First, make sure you're fixing things. I like to do things like put in coded locks and motion sensor LED exterior lights. Ask the tenant if there's anything they would fix if they own the place, so that you could find a list of things that you might want to fix to show them you're actually going to take care of the place. Of course, you fix anything that's a safety concern. But if it's something like, we'd really like the light gone in the kitchen and put in a ceiling fan, maybe that's something you add to your list to do. It's not a safety thing, it's a want. So now the tenant knows you're going to take care of it. And then you use the binder strategy because you're educating the tenants on what it would actually cost to rent somewhere else around here. They might not know. And you're showing them that you don't need to be at or even really close to what current area average rents are. So then they know that they're getting a good deal. And they might want to keep the relationship good because they know it costs a lot to move. They know they'd be paying more. So early conversations to set tenant expectations, and then having conversations with them explaining, here are the reasons why you should call me. And it's okay if I'm your second call, if you have to call 911 first, because if the conversation is going to include these 3 words, I'm on your call list too, but I'm okay being second. If you're going to say something like fire, flood, or blood, you should be calling the emergency line and then me. Anything else can be sent via text, and then you try to move anything important from text to email because emails are admissible in court. In some places, texts aren't. Clear communications with the tenants, but sometimes educating them with the binder strategy helps keep the relationship good, helps limit tenant turnover. I've had really good luck doing those 2 things. So, howdy, Tom. Glad to be here. Me too. How much more are you using Hemlane? Do you plan on expanding with it? So right now it is Hemlane is a property management software. So it's not hiring a property management company. It's if you self-manage your properties, Hemlane, which I will put in the chat so I can make sure it's easy to find. You get a discount if you give the code Dion, D-I-O-N, for your first year. They have a 3-tier system. I need to do the notes so I can clearly define what the 3 tiers are. So this is the butchered version that wasn't researched. I really like the first one, where you can list your properties on up to 30 platforms by putting the information in once. You can collect rents. You can There's a couple other things you could do there. The second tier, you can dispatch your handyman, or you can use a set of handyman that Hamlin uses, kind of like a Thumbtack nationwide app that they have. And then the third tier is really hands-off. So if I'm going to go to another country, I'm probably going to step up to third tier, because they actually have the option for leasing agents to go out and sign leases with tenants at properties if you don't want to do it all virtually. And since I like to do 2-year leases, and my state requires that leases longer than 1 year, the tenant signatures have to be notarized, I probably will go with the Hemlane route for that. Pretty simple to use. I haven't tried any other property management software, so I can't go and give you a comparison. I've used apartments.com and Cozy, which aren't really software, like they're websites that you can use, but they don't do a lot of the things that Hemlane does. And they're only advertising on their platforms, because Apartments purchased Cozy, which is why I went there. And I think Apartments owns a couple others, and Zillow owns a couple. So if you get on one, you might get on 2 or 3, but if you go to Hemlane, you get on like 30. Pretty much everything I saw on there but Craigslist. I don't have a lot of tenant turnover, so I'm probably not the best person to give a review on that, but so far, I like it. David and Dave, howdy, hello again. Enjoying your moving into your first house hack duplex. Lauren, howdy. Good to see another Tacomaite. Excited to listen on the live stream tonight. Thank you. REI Stoners, howdy. Hopefully we're all going to see each other at the next Tacoma FI meetup, which I think is next Tuesday. Listening while on our way to the coast, headed to Camp Kalelech to see some tide pools. Cool. You are really close to the Tree of Life on Rose Beach. Check it out. You'll like it. All there, howdy. Ninja Vanish, howdy. Tom Kine, do I miss working yet? Is that a thing? Do people miss working? Think of it this way. If you have to be paid to do something and then you miss it, you shouldn't have been getting paid. Good question, though. Angel, howdy. Do you regret paying off one of your properties early? No. I wouldn't focus on paying one off. And quick, just in case anybody isn't familiar with all of my content, in between 2013, 2016, 17-ish, lenders would let you go to 4 mortgages in your name. And I was just learning real estate, and I didn't have all my systems in place that I do now. And I figured people who run banks are smarter than me, right? They run banks, and I was just running a truck driving school. So I don't know which one took more intelligence, but they limited you to 4 mortgages after the housing crash of 2008. And I thought, well, if they limit you to 4, maybe there's a good reason. And so I got to 4. So I had a single family house and I bought 3 duplexes. Once I got to 4, I focused all the extra cash flow from rentals, overtime, side hustles to paying off my single family house, because it met 2 things, the debt avalanche and the debt snowball. It was my smallest mortgage with the highest interest rate. It was like 6 something. So I paid it off. I don't regret it, because I'm comfortable with a paid off property. It helped my cash flow. It helped my loan to value on future purchases, to where if I do 20% down on a property, my overall loan portfolio loan to value amount is better than the 20% that would be left if I did a 20% down payment. So I don't regret it. I wouldn't focus on it and do it again, because 2 things happened around 2018. They let you go to 10 mortgages in your name, and interest rates plummeted. They went from 6 something down to 3 something. So not only did I buy a property at 4%, but I refinanced 2 in the 3s. Last year, towards the end of 2021, interest rates were still low. Michael Zuber and Matt the Lumberjack Landlord were trying to correctly and politely peer pressure me into taking out a cash out refinance on that house for up to 50% of the loan to value, to have money to put to work. Their goals are different than mine. They have recycled capital. They've done home equity lines of credit. They've done refinances. They've sold and done 1031s. I've not done any of that. My goal wasn't to have as many properties as possible. My goal is to have enough cash flow to where work is optional. And that means having 3 or 4 times what it takes me to live coming in, that I don't have to sell my life for. And for me, so it's not that I don't regret that that's paid off. I'm really kind of indifferent. It has that swan effect, sleep well at night because that's paid off. It is an option to sell, to refinance, to take out a home equity line of credit. All of that is there as an option. Had I not paid it off, I probably would have another property or two. I don't know that my cash flow would be better. My appreciation would be better. My principal pay down would be better. The number of units would be better, which a lot of people focus on. It's not really my goal. I'm at 16 units. I'm not sure I want 16. I might sell one and take care of debt. Because once you hit financial freedom, money just becomes numbers. Like the quote that I really like is, when you don't have enough, money is the only thing. And once you have enough, it's just a thing. Now it's just playing around with numbers. Safely leaving a big pad. So like I said, I've never seen in my life rents come down market wide ever, but I'm planning on a 50% rent decrease so that I wouldn't have to go back to work. Great question. Thank you. And then my chat moved, which I appreciate. That means people are saying stuff. Here we go. All-nighter hider, hit that like button. Remember, every time you hit the like button, an angel gets its wings. Phil. Yeah, that was the question you asked. All-nighter hider. I'm using really conservative numbers when running a performa. Yes, remember, your performa is great. And performa from the real estate listing agent means made up BS. Mad76. Howdy. Did you get my email from last week's audiobook? I don't think I did. Let me check really quick, because you won and I've been waiting. Send it again, and let me check my spam tonight when we get off, just in case it went to the wrong thing, because I want to make sure that you get that. Howdy, Laura. Next Tacoma Fi meetup, Lauren, it's in the Facebook group, but I think you said you don't do Facebook. Let me look really quick. So if there's anybody who wants to come, if you're anywhere around Tacoma, the next event, it looks like Tuesday, October 11th. So is that next week or the week after? At E9 Brew Pub and Tap Room in Tacoma. So I will see you there. And that means that will be one of the nights where the live stream cuts off around 5:30. Aldair, I think you may have mentioned a website with nationwide housing authority rental rates on a recent video. Can you share the link? I don't know if I can get to it quick enough to where I don't lose people's interest. But yes, this is something Matt the Lumberjack landlord found. See if I have it here. Here it is. This in the chat. So that's a website where you can go to your state, your county, and break out what your housing authority will pay. It breaks down this year's and next year. So 2023 rates, tells you where it's going to go to. And remember, there's a 10% variance. So if you can justify it, they might be able to pay more than what their maximum is. And there is a possibility that you might have to share that link with your housing authority or with the nonprofit that runs housing in your area. I ran into a counselor who had no idea there was a website that said that. They get like an email. This is what we can do. So each one's run different. Nicholas, howdy. My rental has a bathroom door that slightly rubs, catches on the floor when opening and closing. Is this something landlord should try to fix, or is that something you tell the tenant the door works? So the door works. I'm sure the tenant would rather have it rubbed than have a gap, but you're the owner and you have to replace the flooring. So I would adjust it to where it doesn't rub to protect your flooring going forward. Doesn't sound like it's a straight up emergency, like it has to happen soon. But remember, every time they're using the door, your floor is being damaged. Shouldn't be that hard to fix. Sometimes, we did the one time, long, like 4+ inch screws into the door jamb in the direction you need the door to go, up or down or left or right or whatever. Pull it in tight to a stud. There's probably a better way to do it, but that's how we fixed it. Can be something that simple. Because remember, the door is in a box in your wall, and it's all adjustable. All-Nighter Hider says that a carpet cut on a door is a real easy fix. I'd fix it to keep the tenant happy. That too. Birdvids. Howdy. Thoughts on partnering on a home with your kids so they could house hack with them getting the FHA loan? So there are a lot of people who partner with a family member so that one of them uses the FHA loan to get the better down payment, or the lower down payment. It's not always better, but lower down payment and better interest rate. You have to know your family, and you have to understand how the partnership would be structured. I would get everything in writing that's possible to put in writing now while everybody's getting along. If you can get them, if you're all agreeing to do this, you're getting along. You don't want to be trying to put anything in writing when you're not getting along, because then emotions will be a part of it. My mistake early on was renting to a friend. Right. I when I started, I hadn't educated myself. No audiobooks, no podcasts. Didn't have YouTube University. I hadn't found anything yet, and I jumped into real estate. And I thought I was going to replace my income, because that's what I was thinking then. Instead of getting past your freedom number, I was thinking replace my income. So I was uneducated. I thought, who could trust a stranger, right? Why not rent to someone you know? So I rent to a friend, and it was horrible. Really bad experience. I wasn't running it like a business. So if you're starting out and you think there's going to be something like that where you don't have your systems in place, you don't know what your rents are going to be, you don't know how to run it like a business, maybe partnering with family or friends isn't the way to go. But if you have those systems and you know what your rents are going to be, and you know what everyone is agreeing to, and you can get it into writing, and you have an uninterested third party like an attorney that one of you pays to look at it to see what sounds fair, sure. But you have to know your family first. With me, it'd be a mixed bag. Half my family, it's great. That tells you what the other half is. Chester, howdy. Good to see you here. Chester in the house. I wish I had more debt, as long as the yield scales. Yeah, absolutely. All-Nighter Hider says, I want to swim in liquidating debt like Scrooge McDuck. Me too. I wish I had more. I wish the videos worked better on YouTube, on the playing two characters, because one of my favorite videos is me talking to myself 10 years ago saying, you know that bad debt you're in? The solution is more debt. Price and Pride. Howdy. How can you buy a property every year when you don't have enough equity or savings built up to lower the debt to income ratio? Unsure of how the snowball works in the beginning in a high cost of living area. Great question. Very correct way of thinking. How do you scale? How do you get more mortgages? Eventually, your salary can't handle those mortgages, right? Lenders know that. Investors know that. So here's the magic gem that I want you to write down. The first 2 years suck. Your salary, your income, your reserves, all of that really matters for 2 years. Once you have a rental and you get rental income on your tax returns, this is literally how I did this. So my story, and I'm not going to go over the whole thing, I'm just going to Cliff Notes version. I found out about $89,000 in bad debt in my name, had lost a job as a police officer because of the recession, started teaching trucking, driving trucks at a truck driving school, making $17 an hour as a single parent with 3 kids. So there's the nutshell version of the story. Bad debt to income ratio, low salary, hard to get into real estate. Moved from my house into an apartment, rented out the house for 2 years while I saved. I worked side hustles. I worked overtime. I sold things in World of Warcraft online. Like I did anything I could to make money for those 2 years. Focused paying off any debt over 6% and saving for the house hack. At the 2-year mark, and I had rental income on my tax returns for 2 years, your debt to income ratio becomes almost irrelevant. Doesn't matter. Literally had lenders tell me, you can buy anything you want that you can save a down payment for. So now the limiting factor is how much can you save? Because the lenders will look at up to 75% of rental income on your properties in your debt to income ratio. So as long as you're buying cash flowing properties, 75% of rents will cover the mortgage, or way more than that if you're doing it like anywhere close to right. And then some lenders required, if you had at least 3 months remaining on your leases, they would look at the rental income of the property you were purchasing in your debt to income ratio. So if you want to go buy a fourplex and you're not going to house act, they'll look at all 4 units and they'll say, how much is the rent? Well, that's way more than what your mortgage is, so you can buy it. So your debt to income ratio doesn't matter. But for 2 years, they don't want you to scale too fast because this is an unsafe investment for the lender. Remember that the bank is an entity that has money and they're lending it out. They want to lend it out safely with the odds of being able to sell it to somebody, the debt. They want to sell the debt to somebody who's reasonably confident that they're going to be able to collect the debt. So you're not a safe bet for those 2 years because no one knows. You, the bank, the seller, no one knows if you can screen tenants, find a lease, repair and maintain things, keep a tenant in place, or find a new one if there's a tenant turnover for at least 2 years. But once you hit the 2 years mark, everything gets a lot easier. So in those first 2 years, yes, your salary is kind of a limiting factor. So you want to buy 1 or 2 rentals. But after 2 years, it's a great question to have and find a way to survive for 2 years, getting some kind of rental income on your tax returns, because then never have to think about it again. That was a good question. And my chat moved. Here we go. Self-extinguishing debt sounds amazing. That is what they do. The tenants pay for it. I like that. Angie, howdy. Bill, what is that question you have to determine if someone is a psycho? Ever asked to a prospective tenant? No. Did I ever share that in the video? It was an interview question. Figuring out the level of sociopathic nature. Why is that light on? Interesting. Someone's been in here. Are they in here now? A large percentage of people in management roles have sociopathic tendencies. And you need that in some management roles. You need people to be able to make objective decisions without emotional quotients. Not always, but part of it. And so we had a question that determined if somebody was a psychopath. So let me know in the questions if you want to hear that. I'll skip it because it's not really real estate related. Matt, howdy. How are you? Hit the like button if he's earned it. I have moved into my first house hack this past weekend. 3 other units are vacant. Hopefully I get them rented soon. Paying mortgage on a fourplex by myself sucks. Yes, it does. So there's a couple of videos on my channel, or you can reach out to me. I will put my email in the chat on how to find tenants. And is it they're vacant because you need to do work, or are they vacant because you need to fill them? So feel free to reach out with that, because that's maybe a little more specific than you want to get in a public format like this. Lauren, you'll be there. Awesome. Thank you, Matt, for putting in the website. Thank you for fair market rent. If you're watching this in Futureland and it's right after the live stream, the live chat won't be there. So I will pin a comment below after with the website for finding fair market rents. But by tomorrow or the next day, the live chats will be back up. Rick, howdy. Do you think getting an index universal life insurance is a gold option? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 words in that sentence. I don't know what they mean. So no, I don't believe in any form of insurance for myself. If you have people who are dependent on your income, then insurance might play into your investing. My kids are older. And I have a choice. I can either be smart or married. And currently I'm smart. So I don't have a spouse that's dependent on me for income. What was it about insurance? Insurance is an industry that gets rich off of people who don't understand it. So if you're going to do any kind of insurance, it's going to take a lot of research, and not from the people trying to sell you the insurance. It's their job to sell it. I might be the wrong person to ask. There are probably some insurance things you can invest in that make money. I don't invest in stocks or insurance or crypto. I'm 100% real estate. The thing that I like to think is invest in something that excites you. We're more likely to stick to a plan we're emotionally invested in. So don't invest on emotions, but care about what you're investing in. Insurance doesn't excite me. Stocks doesn't excite me. Crypto doesn't excite me. Real estate, it's tangible. I can house hack it. It pays me in 4 different ways. It took significantly less money invested. Like I'm at $0 invested in real estate now to have 6 figures in passive income. Not sure that happens in too many other asset classes. So Rick, I wish I had a better answer. I haven't looked into insurance, but remember, the confused mind says no. All-nighter header. 12-foot 2x4 with a hammer can adjust a door real quick. Better done with drywall walls than plaster. True. Oh, there, you're welcome. Levi, howdy. I'm curious how you handle coordinating repairs with tenants. Say an appliance goes out. Are you showing up to the property to grant access? If not, how to coordinate with tenant? So if it's anything a handyman can do, all of my tenants, all of my rentals have coded locks, and I have a code for contractors, a code for handyman. I have clear communication with tenants, and anytime somebody's going to enter the premises, it's all that communication is done through email in case something does come up in court later. Remember, in my area and in a lot of areas, texts and phone calls and voicemails are not admissible, but an email is. And generally, tenants, if it's an appliance that's not working, don't care about the 48 hours of required notification. So if you're going to go and do an inspection or go into a property, not at tenant's request or not because of a problem, know how much your area requires. I'm not sure what each state is. In Washington state, you are required to give 48 hours notice if you're going to come in. But if a tenant calls me with a leak, the handyman's there in like 20 minutes and you don't have to give notice because they want the problem solved too. And if an appliance isn't working, I would do that. If it's to swap out a refrigerator and it's the Lowe's delivery guy, it's not a contractor I've worked with, not a handyman, not somebody I want to give a code to one of my rentals to, not even one of the one-off codes that the lumberjack landlord will use. I will have a handyman meet them there, or the tenant if the tenant's available. I'll find out what days and times work best for the tenant and then coordinate with the delivery service. I haven't had it yet, but if a tenant wasn't able to do that, then I would have a handyman meet them there. I could probably meet them in there, but I'm lazy. I invest to create passive income. I don't invest to create a job because I am not an entrepreneur. I think I would make a lot more money if I did more things myself. But who wants to do that? Sometimes in the beginning, when first starting out, I did a lot of stuff myself. Worked next to handyman for like how to repair decks, how to, what are the things we do? How to build screens, like things I'd never done before because I want to know how long this takes. So I know if I'm getting a fair estimate or not. Lauren, how do you find the area average yield for Tacoma and surroundings? The same way you do for any market. It's a couple of step process. And they could be done simultaneously too. So it takes 60 to 90 days to get a good handle on what prices are doing. How long do properties sit before they sell? Days on market? What does an average price go for? Because there's 3 things when it comes to yield. Price, rates. So you need to be talking to your lender almost weekly, not only to find out what interest rates are doing, but what their options are, as far as their closing costs and that kind of stuff. And then rents. So for rents, you want to study your market for 2 to 3 weeks, because looking on apartments.com and finding a bunch of rentals and seeing what they're rented for or what they're listed for doesn't really tell you a lot. How long do they sit? Do they make price adjustments before they're rented out? That takes a couple of weeks to find out. You can use Rentometer, and up until about 2020, Rentometer was fairly accurate for our area and maybe in others too. But they use 3 month, 6 month, 9 month, 12 month historical data. I did a live stream about a month ago where I said, let me show you how I find area average rents from one of my units that's available. Rentometer was 30% off low. They were low on what I listed at and had a ton of demand for. When rents are going up fast, Rentometer is not very accurate. When it kind of goes up slowly, it's probably pretty close. So learn the area average rents. That takes a few weeks. Watch prices. That takes 60 to 90 days. And then study all asset classes. Look at single family. And this is around Tacoma. I can kind of tell you what I found, but you might be in a different area where it's totally different. Single family might outperform small multifamily. Look at single family to see what their yield would be. So far, in a little over 10 years, every single one I've looked at would be a negative yield. There are some houses with ADUs that could be a good return. The numbers work like a duplex, but you get single family lending, even more single family lending. And then run small multifamily but also look at the type of property. Lauren, if you're around here and you see a fourplex, I have one that's townhome style. So the tenants are up and down like this, so they're not over or under each other. They'll have their own garages, their own parking areas. Turnover is very low. Rent can be just as high as it is in my duplexes for the same number of bedrooms. But if you have a fourplex that's a big, Lego block with 2 tenants up top and 2 tenants down below, and they have covered parking and no garages, you might get lower rents, even though it's the same number of bedrooms. So knowing the asset type and making sure you're comparing apples to apples as much as possible. Learning the areas. If you're around Tacoma here, Lauren, there's a street called McNeeley Avenue. Google Maps it, look at it, draw a big oval around that. Don't buy anything anywhere near it. It's the war zone that nobody can go to. Police aren't allowed to go there by themselves. And then for me, I try to stay out of municipality city lines. So Pierce County, almost a lot of it is unincorporated Tacoma. Like I've got a property in a little place called Parkland, but the address says Tacoma. It's not in Tacoma city limits. I wouldn't want a property in city limits. You start getting, in our area, you start getting more restrictive. The city of Lakewood sucks. I have one rental there. I don't know I'd ever buy another one there. I don't think it sucks enough to sell it, but it's just their cities run really poorly as far as rentals. They're the only city that I have any rental in that has its own rental division that you pay a fee to, so they can send out somebody who was 19, uneducated, and did stupid things with my tenants that they wouldn't let the tenants have, like a Disney princess light switch cover because it didn't match the other ones. I'm not bitter. So that would be my advice for the local area here. And you're doing good going to the Tacoma Fi meetup groups. Find the other local investors here. Keep asking questions. And that's in your area too. Find the local meetups there. Go get face-to-face critiques of areas and reviews of handyman. Ask them, who do you use? Who's available? Who would you not use? A good way to find contractors too. Not how to seller financing, exactly. Larry, howdy. You're from Spokane, Eastern Washington. Post Falls, nice. Idaho state line area. Thank you for your time and sharing knowledge. Nice. I was over there not too long ago. I was traveling to Twin Falls quite a bit for the last year. So I go through that area a lot. Evolve Properties. Howdy. My mentee is trying to do a seller finance deal. Can you put your email into chat? I can request your seller finance letter. Yes, I think I did put it in the chat. I'll do it again, just in case. It's there. And that's for anybody who wants to see what my seller finance letter looks like. Email me. I will send it to you. It's pretty basic. You can add things, and I do tweak it to the conversation that I've had leading up to each deal. So it's not like I just send that email the way it is. I think I lost where I was at. Sorry. 2 times speed is a beautiful thing. That's how I catch up when I do them too. I lost my place in the chat. There we go. Nicholas, if we didn't have 35% inflation since the pandemic, would you still have been able to retire right now? If so, would you have with less cash flow? So yes, because inflation isn't impacting me the way it is other people. A house hack. I have 30-year fixed rate debt on my property. So inflation or no inflation, I have no housing cost increase. I drive paid off vehicles where I have an asset that pays for it. So every month I'm saving from that asset to buy the next one. The next one's probably 5 years away. Food is probably the biggest thing that's gone up. And I will admit, that's the one thing I don't do like most people do. Financial freedom for me has nothing to do with being frugal. If I had to be frugal, I don't know that I would have even pursued financial freedom. Yes, frugal for 5 years, driving older cars and no vacations and having to house hack. Once you've house hacked for a while, now you can move out of the unit that you're house hacking, and whatever that rents for can pay for where you live. You're still living for free, even if you're not house hacking. Inflation definitely. So what inflation impacted the most for me is net worth, which doesn't matter to me. It added millions in the last 2 years. That the person who has the assets, everyone gets it right, but for the wrong reasons. They say the rich get richer, the poor get poorer by choice. There are people right now who refuse to house hack, that can't stand the idea of their garage touching the garage of a tenant. Well, if you won't make that sacrifice, then you're going to pay for housing and you're not going to get ahead. But if you buy the duplex and your garage touches their garage and you live for almost free, and you could save the money, and you're getting the appreciation, which inflation makes bigger. You're getting the principal pay down. You're having the tax benefits, almost like Congress is full of hundreds of people who own rentals and make laws to benefit people who own rentals. So weird. If you're buying, you're going to do good when inflation hits. It sucks. But it's true. It's the way it is. Rents have gone up significantly, and I was trying to think how much rents have gone up and impacted my monthly cash flow. I want to say easily $3,000 a month just from increases. So would I have retired? I don't know. I'd be right on the edge of it. The rents going up as much as they did had a big impact. The inflation, definitely. Inflation is your friend when you own assets. So, yeah. Good question, Nicholas. I don't know. So would you have with less? I would have had less cash flow if we didn't have the inflation of the last couple of years. Jason, howdy. Looking to do my first house hack thanks to the Three Amigos. Awesome. My W-2 job, I can be gone over 30 hours at a time and have to have my phone off up to 12 hours at a time. Would it be wise to hire a property manager? You have a couple of options. Property management is often a good choice if you're not going to be reachable. Can you develop a relationship with a handyman that you trust to fix things? And if your phone is off, do you ever have access to email? Could you get email? But if you're unreachable for that much time, property management starts to look more attractive. I travel sometimes for up to a month and I'm not reachable for 2 or 3 days at a time, but have your systems in place. My tenants know, once my tenants have interacted with my handyman a couple of times, they have the phone number, the handyman has the threshold of things they can fix. They understand what's an emergency. Having more than one handyman available is important so that if they're not and you're not, you have someone else to go to. Property management is expensive. There are hidden costs. And people say, well, I'm only giving him 10%. Well, 10% of your gross is sometimes 50% of your profit. That's a lot. Tom, I think you mentioned that you had a friend doing RV pad rentals. Do you know anything more about that? Dan came, he retired after 4 years of investing. So a couple of his properties have RV pads. If you're in an unincorporated county, it's a lot easier to get it approved than if you're inside city limits. My voice lasted 54 minutes. That's some strong water. He has an RV on one of his pads where he rents out the RV and makes money. And then the other pads are rented to people who have RVs. I would have to check with your city to see what the zoning is like because it's unique to each location. If Dan comes back, Tom, You'll recognize him. He wears the biker clothes. That'd be a great question to bring to him. Actually, let me take a picture of it in case he comes back. I will just make sure that's one of the questions we cover. Thanks. Laura, I can't thank you enough for drilling house hacking. House hacking is real money. I increased cash flow without increasing units. Hard to buy in this market. House hacking was the answer. It is the cheat code to wealth. It's not required. Like, you can do this without house hacking. Dan didn't house hack. My brother David technically house hacked. His house has an ADU. So, and he did a home equity line of credit on his house. So he kind of did a version of house hacking. So I know people who've reached financial freedom who didn't house hack. It just makes it so much easier. And it's not forever. Like I said, if you house hack for, like Matt the Lumberjack Landlord, he house hacked for years. And then when his spouse, who put up with that amazingly for all of those years, finally was like, oh, let's get a house. The caveat was, this unit will rent for this much money. That's how much our payment will be. I mean, and it was probably close to that. I don't know. Once you have enough cash flow, those kind of things really are just semantics on paper. Then you don't have to house hack after that. And Matthew, howdy. Please share the psychopath info we want to hear on. Okay, good. So there are several versions of this question. This is the one that I often went with. And it's, you're trying to find out if somebody can think logically or do they think emotionally. You need people who think in both ways. They will do different roles. You don't want emotional people in leadership roles. You want people in leadership roles who just look at facts. So the question is, and this is during an interview with somebody who's trying to get the position. So they're trying to give a good answer. And some of it is, you want them to think, we're trying to figure out how you think, or this is to measure your creativity, or anything like that. So you present the question however you think would match the current interview. And the question is, you go to your mother's funeral. And I'm very sorry, in this scenario, your mother just died, but this is a question for this interview. At the interview and at the wake, you meet someone you've never met before. Somehow they knew your mother. And I know it's odd because you're at a funeral and at a wake and you're going through all of the stuff that you're dealing with that. But you and this person connect on an emotional level you didn't even know was possible. You think they're the one. You spend the whole day with them. It's great. It's kismet. They leave and you realize you didn't get their name, their number, don't know how to get a hold of them. How would you find that person? And then you listen to the person's response. And people will go through the generic of, I check the register, I ask right there if there's cameras, I ask my friends and family if they know I'm, go through all these things, but you keep putting barriers in front of the person that they can't find them through the normal path. They didn't sign the register. People don't know them. There was no camera on their car, whatever. Like you're just stringing them along with, there is no way to answer this right. How far will they go to meet that person? The emotional person eventually has exhausted everything and realizes, okay, so I've exhausted everything that makes sense. This is a test of, can I accept failure? And they'll say, I understand I'm not going to be able to find that person. The sociopath says, I kill my dad and I see who shows up at the funeral, or some version of that. Not something the average person would think of, but the person you want in a leadership role who can literally think of what is the most outside of the box. Nobody else would think of this. Nobody would even consider it. You might not let them run with all of their decisions, but they can bring you decisions the emotional person wouldn't consider. That's the sociopath test. We've had people come up with that answer. One worked for us for a while, then she went out and she ran several different companies. So it meets leadership skills. Chester, curious whether you've gotten a chance to see the house hacking spreadsheet I put together. I haven't. You did a post and said you did it, but where did you put it? Maybe email it to me. House hacking turbocharges the FI process, and the spreadsheet bears that out in numbers. I look forward to seeing it. So my email's in the chat. If you could send it to me, that would be great. I'm not sure where you posted it. I saw your post on Facebook talking about it, but I didn't see the actual thing. Not a 10-year-old. Don't know how tech works. Ironwood, howdy. You missed 38 minutes. That's where he said the double speed is beautiful. It's in the so it's in the Facebook group, but I didn't see where. So email it to me. Like I said, thanks. Levi, first 2 years of rental income on tax returns. Is this 2 full years of income or 2 tax returns with rental income? 2 tax returns with rental income. So you can start renting in November, have November, December on there. It shows that you started to have rental income on there. Then it becomes down to that specific lender and what they'll take. They're underwriters, really. So it doesn't have to be a full 2 years. So I wouldn't wait. Keep talking to your lenders and showing, here's my tax returns that show this is when the purchase happened, when the rent started, like all of that. They're going to look at your whole situation. Army Phaser. Howdy. I was going to hit the like button, but not today. I hoop hard. Howdy. Considering credit score drops when you pay. So this is the question that came up at the beginning. I covered this a little bit from the live stream. So this is I don't even know what I should call it. A Dion Talk. I'm going to be doing short, like 15-minute live streams. I have a timer for it, randomly throughout the day, because there are people who will never click on a 2-hour live stream. And so I want them to understand this is how this works. When people ask questions, here's top of mind awareness, what an investor keeps in the top of mind without having to do research, how we think. So you can get this in your head to make decisions easier. So at 15 minutes, I'm not going to get to all the questions. Some of the questions I will not get to, I'm going to save and then talk about in the Tuesday long. So I did that at the beginning of this. And it was talking about your credit score. When you pay off something like your car, you're coming up in next year paying off your car. So that means you are going to lose the history of those payments. So it can negatively impact your score, but you are also going to lose the credit utilization on that loan. So there are different things that will impact your credit score. And it doesn't work the same way. You say, don't let the tax tail wag the dog. Don't let the credit tail wag the dog. Don't keep making payments and extend a loan to keep it alive. But yes, when you do lose something like that, paying off student loans, paying off a mortgage, you lose the history. I am not a credit repair channel. My credit's in the 790. So if it was 830 or 840 and I got there super easy and I understood how it worked, I'd make videos on that, but I don't. So I hope I would go to Graham Stephan's channel from 3 or 4 years ago. He had some really good early on videos on how to fix your credit. And then he might have suggestions on that. Howdy, Matt. Lumberjack Landlord, CVLI is awesome. Dion, we got to do that on Three Amigos. That type of life insurance is great for non-single people or people that want to keep money to their kids. Yeah, but have you met my kids? I don't want them to get nothing. That would be a good thing for us to do, because I would be the uneducated person saying, I don't know anything about this. Teach me like I'm a 5-year-old. There's actually a video I want to make with Zuber that I thought about the other day. You and Zuber. Teach me like I'm a 5-year-old. Why do bonds lose value? So don't answer it here, but that's going to be one of the videos I want to make on Thursday. I understand the interest rates. I understand that sometimes it's tax exempt. Sometimes it's even city and state and local tax exempt. And I was thinking of making a video because somebody asked a question on, would you buy a bond that pays you 4%, or would you pay off a mortgage on a rental that was at 4%? If you're in a market like this where they just can't find a deal and you have money to put to work, which one would you go with? And I understood everything about the taxes and the bonds, which I do not invest in. And I understood the real estate aspect because I do invest in that. And then the concept came up of sometimes bonds lose value. Well, how does that happen? Don't answer now. We're going to talk about that Thursday. All-nighter hider, Bittner in the house. Who let you two in? One big happy family. Agreed. Matt. I see we have James J. Howdy. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate that. So YouTube algorithm knows how awesome this channel is. Thank you for that. That is appreciated. And then I lost my chat, of course. There we go. All-nighter hider, did you get a chance to see about uneducated economists doing a podcast with Chris Irons? I have not watched either one of those yet. James J. Question, and thank you for the super chat. For us W-2 newbies getting started with our first single family house rental, when you were working a W-2 and just one rental property, was it more beneficial to take standard or itemized tax deduction? It made more sense to do which one made the most sense. Run the numbers. What time of year did you buy it? How much depreciation would impact? The thing I do believe is the second you own a rental, you hire a tax pro. There are multiple types of depreciation. And if your spouse or you qualifies as a real estate professional and you do something like a cost segregation study, which is, and this will be very confusing, 30 seconds. Depreciation of a property happens over 27.5 years for residential, 33 and then for 39 for commercial, but I'm not an investor, but for residential, 27.5 years. Some things are amortized over 15 years and some things are amortized over 5 years. So a cost segregation study identifies those and lets you take up to 25% of your depreciation immediately. The negative impact is that the rest of your depreciation is only 75% of it amortized over the other 27.5 years. If you or your spouse qualifies as a real estate professional, that can count against your W-2 income. Are you as confused as I am? Okay. So how does depreciation work? I don't know. Have your tax pro be the one to understand how that works. But here's the reason why it almost doesn't matter. You do the one where it's itemized or depreciation based on which one helps you the most. The itemized deductions can count against your income. The depreciation can count against rental income, not your W-2, unless you're a real estate professional. So that might help you decide. If you ever go to sell your property, it doesn't matter if you took depreciation or not. The IRS assumes, and you know what happens when you make an assumption? You make an ass out of you, an assumption. The IRS assumes that all of the depreciation that could be taken was taken. So it doesn't save you anything on depreciation recapture when you go to sell a property by not taking depreciation. So the depreciation I would take against your rental income and carry any loss forward. The itemized deduction I would do and count it against your W-2. Talk to a tax pro because they're worth every penny. So I think in summation, the answer was both. All-nighter hider. I sent him an email, but I think there's a better chance of reaching him on the live stream. I haven't texted Josh yet to get the Kris will do that. Sometimes in the live streams like this, the best way to get in and actually get their question or comment directed is a super chat. So super chat them and you'll probably get your answer. Howdy, James. You're welcome for the heads up on that neighborhood. Matt Bittner. That would be really good podcast. Chris Irons is funny. Awesome. Sam. Howdy. What would be your advice for people trying to reach FI, but parents need financial help at times? The question often comes up whether we continue to save for a down payment or help parents. One of the best ways to help your parents and your kids is to not become a financial burden to them. And when you say help your parents, sometimes no is empowering. Are you helping them because they need it and they had an event that created the need? Or are you helping them because you will help them and they know that that help is available and they just consider that a part of their expense budget? There's no way I can know your personal situation. I know that if my parents ever called and asked for help, I would probably have helped. I don't think they ever did. So their job was to not become a burden to me. My job is not to become a burden to my kids. If you do have to help your parents and you can figure out a form of house hacking, incorporate that into your thing. Look at the money that you free up. You reduce your expenses, you add to your savings rate. You make it easier to save for your next purchase and easier to save for your next parental bailout. Yeah, that's a hard question because this is the thing that some people might not like when I say this, but you can't pick your family. And to me, water is thicker than blood because you can't pick your family. I love my brother. He's great. But I have cousins I won't talk to. Don't ever want to see him again. I have a sister who hasn't talked to me since the 90s, and she's probably happy that that's that way. Yeah. That's a hard one. If they've tried, and then there's a health concern or something, yes, jump in. But if they're making decisions that keep using your money, saying yes is telling them to keep doing that. Unpopular opinion. Ironwood, you miss living in Western Washington sometimes. Yeah. My friends who moved to Florida right now are missing our weather. Lauren, definitely have lots of questions to ask the Tacoma 5 group. I like very close to Parkland. You live very close to Parkland. Yep. There are parts of Parkland, ironically, the closer you get to public transit, the worse Parkland gets. You get farther away from there, 2 or 3 roads. There's some nicer neighborhoods. All Night Hider, Matt, I think they would get along famously. Matt, QTR and uneducated economist deserve a lot more subscribers. I'm definitely going to have to check them out. All Nighter Hider. I love getting paid to vacation in Alaska while commercial fishing. Yes. Good. My brother did that a couple of times. Technically, I don't think he made a lot of money. He worked a lot of hours, which made it mean a lot of money. Brock, howdy. Rumors I hear are multifamily gets a bad rep when it comes to types of tenants you deal with compared to single family house. Should I be concerned with that, or as long as my screening is solid, I should be good? There is a huge difference between 4 units and less and 5 units and more. The units that I have that are 4 units or less that have their own garages, their own parking areas, their own fenced yards, people look at them like it's a house, like it's their home. If somebody lives 5 units or more, generally, it's a unit. It's an apartment. The property attracts the tenant. So yes, I think if you're going to go for apartments, you want good management, good screening in place. I have not seen more turnover with my small multifamily. My turnover is equal between my single family house and my small multifamily. Rents are about the same. They're really not that different. Prices were very different. The single family houses cost more than the duplexes in my area. At least they were. Now they're kind of balanced out. So if you go 5 units or more, Brock, you might have higher turnover. I think the average tenant's occupancy expectancy is 2 years for 5 units or more, and it's 7 units for 4 units or less. 7 years for 4 units or less. So you have a lot less turnover on residential. Matt, so do these guys. I feel blessed to be here and on the ground floor. I like the idea that we can do these interactives and get to pretty much almost all the questions. I know it's going to be a little frustrating on the short, random midday live streams that I want to do, but I want to kind of almost do one every day, sometimes maybe twice a day. But there are people who can benefit from hearing a question. And like I said, a top of mind awareness, just stream of consciousness, what is in an investor's mind as an answer in a shorter video. Not going to be able to get to all the questions that way, though. Laura, to Matt, thanks for your house hacking encouragement today in the one rental at a time. Your what are you willing to do to become more successful resonates with me. Thank you to both of you. Yeah, awesome. Brock, quick question. What does your eviction and late rent fee timeline look like? So I've not done an eviction on one of my own properties. If somebody were late, and I get this from Matt the Lumberjack Landlord, you start the eviction process the day after so if it's due on the 1st, they have till the 5th. After the 5th, it's late. You serve the eviction papers on the wall the next day, because if the tenant wants to apply for rental assistance, receiving a pay or quit notice helps them in that process and lets the tenant know that you run this like a business. That doesn't mean that you have to follow through. There can be a justifiable reason for rent to be late. For me, it's $20 a day for a late fee. And I would start the process for eviction immediately, because how long the timeline can be. A friend of mine did go through an eviction. It was a couple month delay because of the way the tenant played the system. But as soon as the eviction was filed, it was 14 days later. Like it was 3-day pay or quit, 10-day notice, 14th day sheriff there. So it can be quick. But you help your tenant by putting those papers up, which is counterintuitive. Most people think, I want to be the nice person and not do that. No, you do that because it gives them a leg to stand on if they're looking for rental assistance. If a tenant asks to pay the rent a week late, here is a reason why I don't do that. I have a conversation with the tenant, and I've had tenants ask, hey, we've got this issue going on. Can we pay the rent like 5 days, 6 days later, whatever. And I always go, first, if it's late, there's these late fees. And if the reason is big enough, we can negotiate that. This is a lease agreement between us. So I understand if you had a death in the family or whatever, and you just need to do this, of course, I'm not going to charge you a late fee. But here's why I don't want to do this. I don't want to evict you. And here's why it might turn into an eviction. And if I let you pay the rent late, it's me setting you up to be evicted. On average, most tenants have 4 weeks to save up the rent, to work, to get their paychecks, to get their income, to have the rent ready for next month. If I let you be a week late, you now only have 3 weeks to get ready for next month. So now I want you to think, saying this to the tenant, is this thing that is causing you to be late with the rent worth risking an eviction by only having 3 weeks to prepare for next month? And so far, the 2 or 3 times that I've had that conversation, the tenants have sat back and thought, nope, I can find another way, and paid the rent on time. So 10 years, not one late or missing payment. But I screen on credit score. I've never looked at income. I only screen on credit score. Now at 700 or higher, right? Section 8 included. I have Section 8 tenants with an 830 credit score. So the property attracts the tenants. That's what my timeline looks like. I should have hit record, made a short out of that. All-nighter hider. What's a few years compared to a lifetime of higher standard of living? Yeah, house hacking, yeah. And being frugal, just those first few years. Chester William, how about faked their death versus actual killing someone? That's still in the good. 10-pound sandbags, not saying I've done this, but clearly I may have been in a management role before. T-Blaze, howdy. What's going on? Levi, I appreciate the answer. Thank you. Tom, I see a live chat. Thank you. What is the members only live stream about? So this is an evolving thing. I'm trying to be transparent. That means things might shift in the future. I want to do a couple of things. I want to share the information on how to reach financial freedom. 10 years or less, even if you're not starting from the best position. Kind of like Zuber, all of my information is available on the channel, right? You can ask any question during a live stream, short one or the long one, and I answer. I have not gone. That secret, I'm gonna sell it later, right? Because the goal is give away the secret, sell the structure, like how to. So I make the video, all the content's on here. It makes sense to make a course that's specifically chronologically set up with just the information it takes to get started in real estate, find your market, decide your asset class, understand good from bad, how to manage tenants, like all just that information, not hundreds of videos, but 20, right? Or 15 set up, and the time it takes to set that up. And have a course where we have one-on-ones where they took those videos and then we did questions answering specifically the information in those videos so that people can go, okay, I know you have a lot of content on your video, but I just closed on a property. What do I do now? And that happens in the course, right? And you can have a personal one-on-one talk that way, or in a group setting for people in the course. But it takes $5,000 just to set up a course, not the work to put the videos together, not the work to do lesson planning, to do, this is what I would want someone to do to learn this skill, like all the things it takes to put a curriculum together. Just the website, how the course works, all that is $5,000. I don't know if I want to shell out $5,000 because then I would have to charge hundreds for a course. That makes sense why Zuber's course is $320 because it took thousands of dollars to put it together. And then he has all these other content creators that are constantly still adding source information to the course. I'm not sure I want to do that. Like, I don't want to just, I want to help people, right? And I'm putting out the time and the effort into the videos, but $5,000 to just put a course together, then I'd have to charge for it. So what I'm doing now, and this might change, is I'm doing memberships on the channel where like 2 Tuesdays a month, there's going to be a members only chat and probably a members only playlist. And the playlist will cover what I would have in a course. And then in those live chats, we would cover that. I think that will satisfy my want to make a course without having to shell out $5,000, but narrow it down to where like there's a couple reasons why in the chat, if you've noticed, you have to be a subscriber to leave a message, right? And it's probably frustrating if you just found my channel and you're like, oh, this guy's live and he's talking about real estate and I want to learn and make a comment, and you can't. That's because of the spammers. All of the crypto and the porn sites and all that just keeps popping up. And I've even had Matt, the lumberjack landlord, going through and canceling them all. When I change it to subscribers, you get less of the spam stuff. Well, on the member stuff, it's really the people who are focused on real estate and focused on buy and hold rentals and house hacking and the strategies that I've used. So that's what that's turning into, Tom. I'm not sure exactly what the end product is going to look like. It may be a course. I might put the $5,000 into putting the course together, and then finding out a way to at least recoup that money. Maybe it might just be here on YouTube. We will see. I lost my place in the chat. Okay, here we go. If I miss a question of yours, it's because the chat moved. Put it in again. Phil, so UAINEBMD. Unibimid. Finally caught a live stream. Howdy, glad you're here. I'm going to come up with a name that means your name. I don't know what it'll be. Not quite alphabet, but it's getting there. Phil, Dion's interview videos are great. If yours is an abbreviation, UA, let me know. All Nighter Hider, welcome. Thank you to the name that I can't pronounce. Arizona Joe, appreciate your advice and willingness to point to the correct direction to others. Howdy, thanks for hanging out. Then All Nighter Hider took back a message to make me lose sleep tonight. Chester, bonds are like stocks for the government. I get that part. But how do they lose value? Don't answer here. It's going to be a video. And Chester, you're going to email me. Thank you. Cool. Phil, Chester, how come you don't have a channel yet? You always got great questions and answers. That is a great question. All Nighter Hider, are you a 38? Column must be good question. Chester, I have to reach 5 first. I'm on a 5 journeyman right now. I don't think that's true, Chester. Millennial Mike is working on FI. He is still a state trooper, is still working in law enforcement. I don't know that his cash flow has completely made him FI yet. And he is making a video recording the journey as he goes along. It doesn't have to be that you are FI. Laura, Dion, I sent you an email. Not sure if you had a chance to see it. I think I did. I think I responded. It was about, I did. And if not, if you sent another one, I will check it out tonight. I appreciate your emails. Those are great, especially the ones where you answer that you are okay because you were in the path of the storm. All Nighter Hider, taxes are optional. Every man is independent of all laws except those prescribed by nature. He is not bound by any institutions formed by the fellow man without his consent. When I worked in law enforcement, there are constitutionalists that put up a placard in their window that they don't recognize law enforcement except for the sheriff because he's voted in. So you got to know your neighborhood when you're an officer there, so you know how to handle each situation. Foot ahead of freedom. Howdy. Thanks for all your content. Very helpful. Thank you. I appreciate it. Ironwood. What is the best size house to slow stop turnover? It's unique to the market. If you're in a retirement area or a place where people like the weather because the retirement is good, single bedroom does great with older people. I don't mean retired age older people, but just people who don't have kids, don't want to move. So single bedroom can do just fine. I like 2 bedrooms or more with a garage. The garage means more space. More space equals more stuff, less likely to move. So in my area where I invest, I'm not really doing the single family. Do I have any? I thought I had one unit that was a single bedroom because the inspection said single bedroom and a den. And when the tenant moved out and I went in and inspected, it was really 2 bedrooms. So it's kind of like all of the criteria that I have to help limit tenant turnover is I want washer dryer hookups in the units. I want side-by-side units. I want 2 bedrooms and a garage for more space. I want a pet-friendly environment, like where there's a fence and all the things that help limit tenant turnover. But I don't have to have all of them. I have units that don't have garages. I thought I had a unit that was a 1 bedroom. You want as many of those as you can, as many of the multiple economic drivers. Like I say, I want a large population, but I invest in a town called McKenna that I think has 300 people in it. But it's on the edge of a military base. And so if the people stationed at that base don't want to live on the side that's more urban, their option is the other side, which has a gate, but it's more rural. So I have plenty of demand for that property. So those are all kind of wants, not need, not has to haves. Matt Binder, tall nighter hider. See that statement about taxes to Erwin Schiff? Yeah, exactly. And Phil agrees with me that you could document the process like Millennial Mike to Chester. Lumberjack to Laura, you are very welcome. All-nighter hider. It's a thin line to walk, but controlling the contracts that bind us is possible when one flies under the radar and stays as one where the juice isn't worth the squeeze. I would want to agree with that, except for the majority of IRS audits were to people who made less than $40,000 last year. Because it's easier to automate the audits at that level, and the people don't have the resources to hire the team to defend them. Like, it's risky. Just do everything legal. It's kind of like in law enforcement. If you always drive like there's a cop behind you, it'll never matter if there is one. James, do you have a library of landlord documents? How do you access? I am from upstate New York, not New York City. Should I look for a New York State book that includes these for New York? I know each state differs. Yeah, so each state is different. That is a great point. So I wouldn't use a Washington State lease in New York. I wouldn't use a New York State lease here. BiggerPockets has a lease for each state written by attorneys, but you have to be a pro member. I think the 3-month or longer version to get it. Some states have a landlord tenant resource page. That's where I got my original lease and I haven't seen it anymore, so I think they took it down. But they had it. Washington State had a landlord tenant resource page that had leases on it. The one thing I do suggest, wherever you get your lease from, you can contact property management companies or other investors in your area, maybe. Apartments.com, Zillow, they'll have leases available. I would contact an attorney. I recommend retaining them. You don't have to do that step, but you can say, I have leases ready for my tenants. You're going to be the attorney that I use if I ever have an eviction. Is there any verbiage that you can send me that I can put in my lease that will make your job easier to do if we ever go through an eviction together? And my attorney gave me a little blurb that I put in my lease. That can help. Miss Independent. Howdy. Thank you for that. If I only have 10% down, why calculate the number if I have 20% down? Doesn't that skew the numbers? Yield, cash flow, mortgage payment. Great question. And yes, it does. But we're not running the numbers to see how much we're going to make. We're running the numbers to see what the yield is when compared to other properties. And if you do a lower down payment, it's really easy to show a high yield. 10%, maybe you can get away with that instead of running the 20. But if you do a 0 down, first time owner occupied, one of the loan products like through Bank of America right now, or a VA loan, and you put very little down, maybe no closing costs, no mortgage insurance with their loan program, and you make $1 a year, that looks like a killer return. It's an infinite return. But would you want to own, run, and manage and take the risk of a rental property for $1 a year? So 10% down, maybe you can run the numbers at that. But the reason I do 20% or 25% is if I'm looking at 5 properties and I'm looking at all of them equally, this one I would house hack. It's in the area that I want to live. It has the layout that I would enjoy, whatever it is, that's the one I would house hack. To be able to compare apples to apples of those 5 properties that I want to make my offers on, which one do I want to pursue the most? I try to make as many things equal as possible, including the down payment. You might still be able to just say, well, since I'm going to house hack, it's going to have a better interest rate by about 0.5 point, because it will if you owner occupy it. That's going to be consistent and go on forever. Doesn't really impact the yield as much as saying I've only done half the down payment here that I would have to here. So you don't have to do that. You can run the numbers how you want. I don't think Zuber has ever, but he doesn't house hack, he's ever run the numbers with less than 20% down. He runs on whatever it's actually costing him. I like to look at my house hacks like they were an investment purchase. Would I still do it if I had to put the down payment down? Is the return good enough? Because the more that you put down, you buy all cash, you get the worst return. The more you leverage, the better your return will be. Your yield doesn't mean your cash flow will be better, but the yield will be better. So that's a good question, and it's not a hard and fast rule. When it comes to calculating your yield, parts of it are science, right? This is what the rents are. This is what my mortgage will be. This is, right? Parts of it are art. Will there be tenant turnover based on the elements I see on this property? Do I have enough sources of tenants where maybe they wouldn't rent from your place? Like all of that, that's more ethereal than the hard science of numbers. With the 10% down, you're probably fine. It's the people who do like 0 down VA loans and then go, I make $100 a month. But if I bought this other one, I would make $1,000 a month. But it's not a purchase, not an owner occupied purchase. That's why I try to equalize it. Alex, howdy. Do I pick another market? Nothing cash flows with current rates. Nothing cash flows in the asset type that you are looking at and what's going on with rents. So instead of looking at, let me pick another market in another state, Gary, Indiana, or Ohio, or wherever's way out there. Look at your city and then draw concentric circles, just rippling out like you're in a pond until you find an equilibrium between prices and rents where they do start to cash flow. That might be if you live in Los Angeles, my brother invests up in Kern County. So the edge of LA, you've got Rosemont, Mojave, Bakersfield, Taft, Tehachapi, all those cities that aren't in LA, but are an hour, hour and a half away, or 20 minutes away if you live in Lancaster, right? Like, so know that area. How far out would you have to go to find a place that makes sense? Is it so far away that you could go there to look at it, but maybe you'd want a property manager because you wouldn't want to drive 3 hours one way to handle a tenant issue? I don't know that I'd pick another market. How are you finding your deals? Do you have one agent? Because a lot of people do. And that one agent is missing 60% of the deals out there. I use at least 3 agents, and in 10 years with the same exact verbiage, like literally copy and paste email, this is what I want you to find me. One time in 10 years have I ever gotten the same property within 24 hours. Searching on the MLS is nuanced. So you want multiple agents doing searches. You can drive for dollars. You can look at tax records, do skip tracing, find people who are paying taxes from out of state, properties that are behind it. There's all these creative ways to find deals. I'm the lazy investor, so all my deals come from the MLS. I haven't done anything off market. I've done nothing from a wholesaler. If you can literally look up rentals, contact the owner and say, are you considering selling? Or if not this property, do you have any others for sale? I mean, you can do mailers. There's all kinds of ways to find deals. What asset classes are you looking at? Is it single family, which don't cash flow in my area, single family with ADU, an often missed class because most investors say, I want small multifamily, which that doesn't show a house with an ADU because you don't know how the listing agent's going to list it. They might put house with accessory dwelling unit, auxiliary dwelling unit, ADU, DADU, granny flat, mother-in-law house, like one word that's not in your search. And those run the numbers like a duplex, but qualify for all of the same single family lending that a house does, just a single family house. Are you looking for things that you can do value add to? Split level houses that can be divided, built basements that can be built into apartments. Like there's tons of strategies in your market. Somebody is investing there successfully. At your local REI meetup, you might find the person who's doing it. Everything I said can be wrong. And you are in a market where nothing would cash flow. Draw those circles out and see how far you might have to go. And yes, sometimes it does make sense to invest in another market. I live near Tacoma and Olympia in Washington, which is not the most expensive market, but it's higher end. Like I think the average house is 4 something. Going to King County, the average house is 9 something. So I wouldn't invest in King County, but draw circles far enough outside of it. If I live there, I don't. I would come out and all of a sudden in Tacoma, it's like, wow, these prices and these rents start to make sense. And when interest rates go high, Seller financing becomes more attractive because interest rates don't impact what the seller will set interest rates at, because you get to educate them on how all of this works. Doesn't mean they'll agree to it, but there's the chance. All-nighter hider, $320 is not much considering the content, and when you pay, you stay, right? And you do care more. James, howdy. With the large increase in rent this past year, did you give your tenants just 30-day notice, 60-day notice, etc.? Some rents increased 30% or more. So I did the binder strategy. My tenants asked for the rent to go up 20 to 28%. And I just did the binder strategy again on 3, and it might have been 18%. So that might have been my kind of lowest ones on the last 3. I have to do the math. I'll figure that out. I'll make a video on that because I did the binder strategy while I was there and they had no water. The well was broken. Actually, the pump switch in the building next to us that they had to fix was broken, which my tenant fixed because the electricians couldn't figure it out. It's funny. So a whole video coming, but not today. My goal is to get the tenants to ask me to raise the rent. That's the whole purpose of the binder strategy, which so far has worked every time. On average, it's usually $250 to $400. I've had some at $200. My lowest one was $155 because the tenant binder strategy it's great. Once they've agreed to the rent, like they've asked me to raise the rent, I agree. I acquiesce to their request. Then after that, I set it at 90 days. And I do it slowly like this. I break it down to let them mentally process. They have just agreed to a rent increase. They might be thinking, the end of the month is in 3 days. That's when this is. The end of the month is in 28 days. That's when this is. I say, okay, so cool. We've agreed to this. I'll come with a lease. We'll put it all in writing. Next month stays the same. Then the month after that stays the same. And then that third month, that's when we're going to make this adjustment. So that should give you some time to adjust for this. Tenant's happy. They mentally agreed. This is the new rent. They're getting ready for it. I push it out. Makes them feel good. Makes me look better. Satisfies the legal requirement in my area to give a 60-day notice for anything more than a 10% rent increase. So know what your local laws are. Your local laws will dictate the minimums. You can do longer. I don't, and my tenants watch my content. So if they're watching now, they know that that's why I agreed to 90 days. But I let them, mentally accept there's a rent increase, and then I delay it. I could tell them if I wanted to, hey, it's because, we have to wait 60 days. I just say, no, that works. We'll do it in third month. We'll set this up. It just works better. Yeah. That's a good question. Thanks. Alex, howdy. Even markets an hour away from where I work no longer cash flow. What should I do? House hack. So the more expensive the area you're in, the more important house hacking becomes. But yes, an hour is the starting point. What is an hour and a half? What does 2 hours look like? So it's Celtic. That makes no sense phonetically, but I pronounce it. And like you ain't nothing but a hound dog. Refers to my dog. Okay, cool. You ain't nothing but a hound dog. Okay. You ain't nothing. I'm not saying you ain't nothing. Every time I see your name, I'll come up with something better. Nice, though. Lauren, thank you. See you at the Tacoma Fi on Tuesday. I will see you there. Thank you for that. Let me see if I missed a question. I'm trying to get better at the super chats, knowing that they usually mean a question that sometimes didn't fit in the chat. And we have 21 minutes left for tonight. I'm going to make sure so I can get to as many of these as I can. Where did it go? Okay, there we go. I'm just going to say you ain't nothing but a hound dog when I see your name, if I remember. Larry, howdy. Remember on your very first live stream when you said you didn't like to do live podcast, it wasn't sure how many you do, but goes the dynamite. Yeah. So if you haven't seen my very first one, I did talk about this, and this will be an overshare that I'm going to blame on my hard water, because I don't hardly ever talk about this. Since Desert Storm, I have some memory issues, and I don't mean, oh, I'm getting old, I'm forgetting stuff. And some people are like, oh, I forgot my kid is at soccer practice. Kid's been waiting for 20 minutes. I'm the person that goes, oh crap, I have a kid. So my life is a series of Post-it notes everywhere that I go, to remind me of things, and reminders on my phone and reminders on my calendar. There's literally a Post-it right here that says, it's Tuesday, you're in a live stream, so that when my brain wipes out, I know where I am and what to do. And sometimes I'll say, oh, I've lost my place in chat, to kind of remember where I'm at. So I really thought live streams would not be a format that would work well for me. But I really see the value in a question and then an answer with no research. Like, as an investor who's making decisions to make offers, to negotiate, to how I do the day-to-day, what do I keep in my head? Like, that's the information the investor needs. Yes, I could spend a week researching. These are the strategies you can use to improve your credit score, and then make a video on that. But that's not something that I do, right? It wouldn't be natural. So I'm enjoying the live streams, and I'm really happy that people come and hang out, and I'm hoping that the information is helpful. All-nighter hider. I'm not a jerk at all when it comes to any law enforcement officers. Defense is done on paper, not verbally. There you go. I don't have a problem with the constitutionalists. They were usually not breaking the law. So, Ash, howdy, and thank you for being a member. And would you ever create a Discord? I don't know that I probably should. What I think I'm going to do, depending on how many members there are, I'm going to do Zoom meetings for members, so they could literally just be in the Zoom call if they wanted to. Hide your image if you don't want people to see you or whatever. I might do Discord. I've always had Discord servers on my computers because of being a nerd and playing World of Warcraft, but I've not thought of incorporating that in sharing financial freedom information. That's a good idea, though. I should start thinking about that. All-nighter hider, don't short the like button. Thank you. I appreciate that. Laura, thanks. That is the one. My friend's daughter's boyfriend's moved to Puyallup, Washington. He works from home in IT. Their rent was increased 3 times. They are renting a unit in a duplex, wondering if they are your tenants. No, because my tenants got the binder strategy right after acquiring it, and then got a 5% increase every other year until 2021, and then all just had their rents increased again. And I don't know in Puyallup, but rents are going up around here. It is crazy. I had 2 tenant turnovers this year. It's been years since I've had a tenant turnover, but I had 2 this year. I want to say 30. By the time I get the thing pulled down, 30 plus applicants at massive rent increases. So I know my rents are still below average. So there are a lot of places that are just kind of raising it to the area average. Brock. So basically, you only put offers in for multifamily houses that you would live in yourself. Not true. Not necessarily because of neighborhood, but the house itself. Half the multis in my market I wouldn't live in, because I just feel like they attract the kind of tenant I wouldn't want to rent to. Is that how your market is too? I would buy places I wouldn't live. And this is something that I take from my dad, which I haven't learned many things from him. And Dad, I still miss you. But he was trying to kind of be mean to my brother, which is how our family shows love. My brother had his first triplex, his first rentals, and they were pretty rough. And my brother's a craftsman. He then fixed them up, right? But he was buying them, they were pretty rough shape. My dad looks at it, and it put a light bulb above my brother's head when he said it. But my dad goes, man, people will rent anything, trying to be insulting. And my brother sat there and goes, you're right. People will rent anything. So as long as there is a demand for the rental, I would buy it. But yes, I want it in an area that's safe. Like I want to be able to go there or send a handyman there and not be concerned with for their safety. I want it to be in an area where the cops can go by themselves. So the bad area of town where I wouldn't go, I don't want to own. But that doesn't mean I wouldn't like, trying to think of what a property could have that I wouldn't want. Next to a noisy club or on a busy street or all the other things that people consider detractors, there are tenants for that. Adjust your rent accordingly and see if the yield is still there. But yeah, so I make offers on small multifamily, but there are certain areas that I do exclude because of the area and it's not safe. So if that makes sense, it's not that I wouldn't live there. Yeah, that's how I look at it. Chester, I believe BiggerPockets allows people to download leases for all 50 states, but they are $99 each. Oh, so you could pay for it even if you're not a member or be the annual membership. Right, I would have to check on that. I hope anybody that went to BPCon this week had a great time. Tom, have you considered purchasing properties in another country? No. Citizenship laws are above my head, and who knows what's going to change in the future. There are countries, and I met somebody not too long ago who lived in a country where there used to be a strong military presence from the United States, and the military presence pulled out. And literally, the new government kind of pretty much just took all the property away from everybody. I don't understand the other countries well enough to know how to invest there. I do know that there are some people who marry somebody from another country and then purchase, but from my knowledge is if there's ever a divorce, none of those assets are touchable by the person from the United States. So I've not looked at another country. I know that the lady landlord, Becky, I think that's the name of her channel, the lady landlord. We've done a video together. She buys here and in the Dominican Republic. So she does out of country. My friends that I've literally known a billion years, we were in the Marines together, went to Colombia, taught English there for several years, met his wife. They live here. She's now teaching here. She went this summer and purchased an apartment cash that she then rents out. So I think she's going to go back every summer and buy one of those. So it's doable. I would look at what your citizenship status is, but I'm not me personally done it. Financial firefighter took back a message to make me wonder forever and ever and lose sleep tonight what it was. Howdy. Nicholas Massey, have you ever been on BPCon? I know it's on right now in San Diego. I have not. What can I say in a video that won't get me in trouble? I like BiggerPockets. I like what they're doing. I'm a huge fan of people like David Green, Mindy Jensen. I like their concepts. I like what they share. I love the Real Estate Rookie Show. They're still trying to talk to the people starting out. But yeah, that's as much detail as I'm going to go into. I would like to do more things with BiggerPockets in the future, but I would really myself like to continue to focus on the starting out investor, because that's the hardest part. Once you have several cash flowing assets, now you can kind of go in any direction you want. You could try riskier strategies because you have the assets to handle your mistakes. I think the most important is the getting started. The whole, you can't learn how to drive a parked truck, right? But you get the truck rolling, now you can kind of handle it on your own. Financial firefighter. In some areas of Pittsburgh, a property has to pass inspection to be a rental. Some areas here in Washington too. Property passed, but inspector told tenant that water heater was old and a liability. Tenant now wants it replaced. How would you handle this? I would look at how many years old the water heater is and where it's located. So for me, water heaters that are inside the house, like in a closet or in a washroom where you have your what is the flooring called that's under your flooring? Your joists. If the water heater is on joist part of the house where you have a crawl space, I don't want it to be more than 8 years old. So if it's more than 8 years old, I would want to replace it. I would agree with your inspector. If I have it in an area where it's like I've got a mud room where it's on cement, and if the water breaks and there's literally a pipe going all the way outside, I don't care if it breaks. I would educate the tenant on when that breaks, you're going to be without hot water for just as long as it's going to take for me to get another one in here. And so I would have it go up to maybe 12 years. But even those at 12 years, like, so I just had a handyman about 2 months ago doing a rehab for me, like a tenant flip, flooring, paint, simple stuff. Didn't move any walls, didn't do cabinets or anything like that, just the basics. That's done, and he's on a couple projects now. But as soon as those are done, he's actually going to go to every one of my properties and look at the water heaters based on that criteria. If it's interior, 8 years and older, they're all going to get replaced. And if it's in the mudrooms or in a place where it going out isn't going to impact the house, 12 years or older, I would replace it. So I would agree with your tenant, depending on its age. If it's 5 years old, then no. If it's 7 years old, I'd say, like, yeah, we're going to do this in a year or two. Yeah, so that's how I would handle that. Miss Independent. Howdy again, thank you. Do you let your potential new tenants know you live next door, and has it scared away tenants? No. So I haven't had any turnover at the fourplex, so I haven't had to deal with that. I had turnover at the did I have turnover at the duplex? No, I had to put a tenant in at the duplex. And I said, I'm the owner. It didn't seem to have an impact at all. I think transparency matters. One thing I do add is when I'm talking to tenants, I talk about two things. One, I have some Section 8 tenants, which means that I could be audited, and all of my units have to be handled the same. So that is a way to convey I treat everyone exactly the same. And the second is I have a couple of partners that I check with on bigger decisions. That could be my brother, it could be my friend, it could be another investor, it could be my son's cat. It's just so that I'm not the only person saying no when they have a weird request. Travis, thank you for joining to the But Not Today group. I appreciate that. And I talked about it a little bit earlier. Closing on, so I'm going to get to that in just a second. I see that you actually made a comment, so I'm going to make sure I'm on that next. Okay. I missed a few of them. I kind of like the tenants knowing that I'm the owner, but knowing that I have partners I'm going to check with, and that I have Section 8, so that in case I'm audited, they all get talked to the same. Some tenants seem to prefer that they live next to the owner. Like, literally, all I got to do is go to you right here if there's a problem. So Travis, hey, Tuesday I'm closing on number 1. Congratulations. Tomorrow, but for some reason I'm nervous, even though I did the work. That never goes away. Nervous and excited kind of blend, but the nervous is still there. How are you feeling on your first deal? Excited, nervous, wondering what I was missing, just like everyone else. I think I still do that whenever I buy, because there's something new almost every time at every property. The last one that was weird was the well. No one could tell me where the well was, couldn't tell me it was on my property. The property used to be this business and my fourplex together on one property that was subdivided, and so there's like a county agreement on well sharing, and so that made me, like, I did the deal thinking I might find out they have the well and they could turn the water off at any time, and I have to connect the city water, and that's a big expense. Like, just kind of all the what ifs that come up. The first time you do anything in real estate, it's terrifying. The second time, it feels like you could almost teach a class. The nervousness never really goes away. Signing a new tenant, I mean, it becomes mundane, old hat. It's just a repetition of the same thing, but you're always keeping your mind out for the new thing. Something new will pop up. I have to go back and listen. Definitely interested in the member program. Cool. Trying to do the But Not Today membership, but it's not working. I'll figure it out. Well, thank you. You did figure it out. Cool. I got all those. Welcome to the group. We have cookies. Matt, howdy. Oh no, you've missed so much. That's why we have double speed, and you go back and I sound like a chipmunk. I'll have to catch up tomorrow. Thanks for sharing your knowledge and experience. Thank you for hanging out. I appreciate it. Hopefully this stuff is helpful. We'll be wrapping up in 6 minutes. Oh, Laura. Okay, sorry. Their rent was increased 3 times in West Palm Beach, Florida, and then they moved to Washington because it was less expensive there. This was before the hurricane. Oh, okay, cool. That makes sense. So I'm really close to Puyallup. I mean, I was at 15 minutes away from one of my rentals, so I'm pretty close to there. Puyallup's a nice area. It's got a really good school district. So, All Nighter Hider. Nomad Capitalist is a good resource for REI abroad. There you go. Good. Who else would I think of investing in? I don't have any. I know Morris and Best had to move to another country, but that's a different story. Chester Williams, Zuber got snubbed for BPCon. He was pissed off this morning. I heard that this morning. He used to be a blogger, not a vlogger, but a blogger for BP. And him and Brandon didn't get along. So that kind of went away. He was fun this morning. Chester, you've got mail. Ironwood. Question, Dion, are you in a tenant landlord association? No. I'm in one in Montana. It helped with my 2 houses in Montana when I was starting, but I think they are a little behind the times after finding. Look, we got porn showing up. They've met their thing here. Let me see. Hide user from channel, but that probably isn't going to affect them. So Ironwood, associations are great. I don't know if I've ever said this before, because I don't know if I've ever said it out loud before. Let me know if this sounds arrogant or douchey. I joined a couple of associations, trucking associations, the Northwest Career College Federation, which was at the time 112 colleges. I was brand new to running a CDL school, and I joined these associations. So I look at real estate associations the same way. Learning an industry, learning a business, I joined that association. I literally got to sit down and have lunch with the president of ITT or Heal Tech or cosmetology schools, or people who ran businesses that did what a CDL school wants to do, different format, to learn. At about the 6-month or 1 year mark, I was doing the teaching. And then I became the president of that association, was the president for the next 6 years. And then I finally just stopped going because I realized I think those associations are great to enter in the beginning so you can learn. If you think it's going to have an impact where they have a strong enough lobbyist to impact laws in your local area, maybe stay connected. If it's you're now sharing the knowledge and teaching people who are your competitors, not so much. So I'm not in a real estate one. I do watch the laws here. So I haven't really looked into that. James. I read today on another channel that in Florida, the insurance company for homeowners insurance is notifying their clients that they will no longer be writing insurance there. That's probably the first step to an insurance company going bankrupt. Said that they are a large insurer. Is this legal for insurer? Absolutely. It's their money. They can do whatever they want with it. I have heard of them. Insurers can and will raise the rates way up. Yeah, so they can choose to not operate in a state at any point in time. It generally isn't retroactive. They're not going to be able to say, we don't work there anymore. You can't file a claim. If you had insurance when the incident happened, that's a very different story. But they can absolutely say, we're not you. So if you have a claim, let's say you have 5 houses and you have a claim on one because your neighbor's tree hits it. And even though it's your neighbor's tree, it's an act of God. So your insurance covers the repairs. Your insurance can say, we won't insure any of your properties ever again. And you can contact insurance companies and they'll say, we won't insure you either, just because you had a claim. Generally what happens is for 5 years, no one else will insure you and your insurance company will triple your rates. They get their money back. So when something like a massive problem like this happens and a company had been banking on making money in that state for the next several years, they can absolutely not provide coverage going forward. And I would expect rates to go up significantly. And if you just had a claim, it's going to be really hard to find insurance from even from another provider. So it's unfortunate. And then there's a bunch of free chat or free porn if you want to go there. Spam in the house. Gotta go, gotta find love. Good luck. Chester. That's the inspiration for the all-nighter portion of the tag. Nice. Low-hanging fruit. I couldn't resist. We are at the end of our chat. So, Mad76, I'm looking forward to the email. I don't see it. Advice on wage. I see that. Let me look at my spam. Received your payment. Nope. Did you get my email right? Let me put it back in here again. I'll make sure you're doing that. There's a dot between the N and the M. I'd usually just copy and paste that if you could. Becky Nova, Lady Landlords. Yep, that was the name of the channel. Thank you, Larry. I appreciate that. Cool. I don't see an email. Nope. It's not in spam. I might have to have you email like Matt, the Lumberjack Landlord, or somebody, and because you're on his channel often too, because I want to make sure that you get that audiobook. I hope tonight's session helped people. I look forward to seeing you all in the future. Michael Zuber is getting close to his 50,000 subscribers. When that happens, we're going to have a gather in Las Vegas. I am going to go to California on November 12th for Zuber's event. I'm going to be one of the presenters there. So I'll be in California. If anybody is around his thing, knows what that event is, I have to get more of the details on it. And I will be doing more random midday live streams where I try to answer 3 or 4 questions. My timer is about 15 minutes long for people who like shorter content. Thank you all so much. What's a good cap rate to hit? I'm going to answer that before I stop. Thank you for getting that in there, Robert. Howdy. I have no idea. Cap rates do not in any way whatsoever apply to 4 units or less. It might apply in some way to apartment complexes, 5 units or more, which I don't invest in. I'm in residential, 30-year fixed rate debt. Never have seen a way to apply cap rates to anything in rentals of 4 units or less. I look at yield, where you actually calculate your expenses, your actual expenses, your cost to acquire, what your profit will be throughout the year. Take your annual profit and divide it by your cost to acquire to get a yield. Cap rate can be 50 or 2 and not tell you anything about what your yield is going to be. So if you are investing in multifamily, 5 units or more, 10, 20 units, then maybe cap rate applies, but that is not how I invest. I don't do anything with adjustable rate mortgages. I don't do anything with loan reevaluation periods. I would, if I was going to buy an 8-unit apartment complex with a Convoy Home Loans does fixed rate debt 30 or 40 year on up to 8 units, I still wouldn't use cap rate. I would literally look at the yield. So it's a great question. It just doesn't apply to residential real estate. Awesome. Thank you. You guys have a week full of awesome. I hope to see some of you in the videos that come out on Thursday for the 3 Amigos, and maybe in one of my random midday live streams. Until my next video, thanks for coming to my Dion Talk.